So this is a sector that is undergoing so much transformation. We see that EV sales are projected to reach 40% by the year 2030, which is insane, being in the US right now, thinking about that, and what's going to come. And the three of you are leading that transformation and preparing us for it. Hassan, I want to start with you. Your family business is deep in the automotive space. You are one of the largest independent Toyota distributors in the world. What was exciting for you about taking on the mantle and bringing the family business to the 21st century when it comes to automotive?
Well, thank you very much, Mariana. To begin with, it's a real pleasure and an honor to be here at FII Miami. It's my first time in Miami FII, so it's so wonderful to see all the energy. A little bit about our company, Abdul Latif Jameel. We're an international diversified network of businesses that operate in several sectors and industries, one of which is mobility. And I think mobility is a very interesting one that is kind of the way, because we've been in it the longest. And what's interesting is we look at mobility as a long-term opportunity. So we look at the transition, not just what's happening today, but really what's happening over the next 10 and 20 years ahead. And what we're seeing today in the mobility sector, there's really a lot of disruptions unfolding. There's, of course, the autonomous kind of world unfolding. There's cars and mobility are becoming more connected and more digital. Sustainability is a big part of it, big part of it as well. So all of these, we're seeing all these converge together and really creating this disruption. As for our company, ALJ, as you mentioned, we've been working with Toyota for the last 70 years. This year it's our 70-year anniversary. And we've been very fortunate to be a partner with them. But we also invest in new opportunities. So, for examples of that, we've invested in a company called Rivian, which is an electric SUV and pickup lifestyle electric vehicles. And we invested with them 12, 13 years ago when there was just 10 engineers, 10 guys working. We invested in India an electric two-wheeler and three-wheeler tuk-tuks, electric tuk-tuks. And that's an investment we did because we're very interested in the global south and how we can electrify and look at opportunities of electrifying countries in the global south.
And I love that because you're respecting the local culture also and developing something that is authentic to the place.
Of course. It's a very, very interesting market there as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. Another wonderful company we're invested in and we work closely with is Joby, which is a vertical takeoff and landing. They don't like me when I say helicopter, so it's not a helicopter, but it's basically a vehicle that is electric that is looking at intercity transportation. Because today we're looking at roads, we're looking at traffic, but actually we're not looking at air mobility. So Joby, or Joe Ben, the CEO and the founder of Joby, is really taking that and pioneering that initiative. And of course, there's Vern, which is a phenomenal company and a phenomenal founders that I've met recently. I met a while ago, but recently we invested with them that looks at autonomous mobility solutions. And I of course they're going to speak more to
about that, yes.
About that. But I think what's interesting, there are many factors that are happening that are unfolding today. But if we look at traffic or accident rates, for instance, 90 to 95 of accidents today, 95% of accidents today are by human error. 95% of accidents are by human error. If we can eliminate or even drastically reduce that from the equation, we can really start seeing a huge disruption, and we believe that's really possible.
It's amazing. Yeah. And if you think about many of the issues that we've talked about in this space, when you talk about the future of our cities, when you talk about the global south, the majority of the population lives in urban centers that are truly not equipped transportation-wise to have that massive amount of people there. So what you three are doing is really equipping our cities and our communities for a better future to come. Mate, I'm going to go to you now. Tell us about Rimac Group, and how do you see startups, how do you see legacy automakers really collaborating to shape the future of the industry?
Yeah, maybe, Mariana, first to address what you said about the increase in market share of electric cars. I'm 37, I don't look that old, but I feel like a really old man doing this for the last 16 years. I'm doing electric cars for 16 years now. And I went through all the cycles, when I built my first electric car, all my car guys' friends were like, are you nuts? What are you doing? To people laughing at me what I was doing with the washing machine at racetracks in 2008, 2009 when I started racing an electric car, to nobody wanting to touch electric cars, nobody wanting to invest in it, to then all of a sudden it was all the rage, like billions and billions being poured into electric cars, both by investors and the big car companies, everyone going all in. I don't know what happened, COVID, Greta, I don't know. All of a sudden it was like the other way around. And then today it's like nobody wants electric cars anymore. They stink again. I don't know. So it's a constant cycle of boom and bust over the last 16 years. And I think, in the end, it will happen. When somebody asks me, when will all cars be electric? I'm saying never. Because if you look at the parking lot, I think the parking lot now is like, if you look at any parking lot here outside, like 90% still combustion.
Yes.
And when will that parking lot be electric? The answer is never, because I think it will go to 30–40% electric, and then the parking lot will disappear, because you will not have cars sitting around. That's really, one thing is how you power electric cars, or how you power cars, combustion engine or electric and so on. And for me, that's like already old news. Like, it will be electric, the majority of cars. It makes more sense because they are more efficient, much more energy efficient. But the inefficiency of cars lies somewhere else, which is what people are ignoring. The inefficiency is because you use it 3% of the time. So your second most valuable asset. So your first most valuable asset is your house or your flat, whatever. The second most valuable asset is the car. And the car you only use 3% of the time. The rest of the time, it's sitting in a parking lot. You're not using 2 tons of aluminum, plastic, copper, steel that you paid a lot of money for. And you have to worry about parking, servicing, cleaning, and so on. And, I'm a huge car guy. I'm a car guy since ever. I have 15 cars in my collection, and it will be a lot bigger one time. But majority of the times, you don't want to drive. You would like to do something else, and so on. So we are focusing on 2 ends of the spectrum.
At Rimac Group.
Sorry?
At Rimac Group.
Yes, at Rimac Group. So one company, Bugatti Rimac, makes the fastest, most exciting cars in the world, Bugatti and Rimac cars. So Bugattis are on average 5 million euros, and even if you have that, we can't sell you a car because we are sold out. We are sold out until 2030, so these are cars.
You're going to get a lot of people coming up to you asking you for Bugattis.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Anyone has a Bugatti here? Let's see in the room. Anyone?
Nobody's going to raise the other hand. It's like, no.
Come on, guys.
Sold out.
Just electric.
So we make those kind of cars on one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum with Vern, what Marco and I have founded 5 years ago, we want to cater to those occasions when you don't want to drive.
Okay.
And we want to make that the safest, best experience you can have.
And I want Marco to tell us about that, because that's sort of a big development at Vern. And you've often said, piggybacking off what you said, Mate, which is, we're all talking about EVs. EVs are in the news, but you're like, nah, EVs, that's old news. So what's the new trend?
I wouldn't say it's a new trend. It's just like, maybe just stepping back a little bit, where we're coming from. We're coming from Croatia, so it's a country with, not a lot of, or almost no VC funds, very little industry, almost no automotive industry. So we had to build everything from scratch. And that's also our approach when we're talking about robotaxis or autonomous mobility. So when you think about robotaxis, you think about Waymo, you think about Tesla, you think about these companies that are investing like billions and billions of dollars into this, but we had to approach it in a different way. So we started first not with the technology, we started with the customer. So we were looking at what can we do to really change the customer experience all around? So we're developing our own app, we're developing our own fleet management system, we're designing and engineering our own car that is just for the robotaxi purpose. It's a two-seater. And then we're also building what we call the motherships, which is basically the place where these cars go for inspection, charging, cleaning, and so on. But stepping back, like, we can't do this with billions of dollars. We don't have that. So we built the whole company. We built what Mate was talking about with a fraction of what you can see in Silicon Valley or here in the US. So our whole DNA is about efficiency. How do we do this efficiently? That means you have to partner up with the right companies. And we partnered up with Mobileye for the self-driving stack. We're integrating that. And then also on the other side, which is a little bit different in Europe, which is going to be our first market to roll out.
Okay.
It's not the same like in the US. So some of the things that I hear some of the CEOs and leaders, like Elon, saying here in the US, they don't really apply to Europe. Like, let me give you an example. Like, if you came to any of the cities in Europe, to their traffic authorities, and I've been talking to many cities, and you said, like, we're going to have a super cheap robotaxi, it's going to be cheaper than public transport, they'll probably throw you out, from the room. Because none of them want to see taking people from, subways, from public transportation into a car on the street, even if it's autonomous, even if it's shared. So what you have to do is, like, you have to really talk to the cities, understand their issues, understand their problems, and you have two customers. You have the customer in the car, and you have the city as the customer.
Yes.
So it's like, to sum it up, it's about how do you do it efficiently with the right partnerships, how do you focus on the real customer experience and what you can do differently there, and then how do you actually partner up with the cities where you want to roll out. This is, in our view, going to be critical for actually rolling out a service that brings benefits to the customers, but also to the communities where you operate. So, yeah.
And when you talk about your two-seater that you're developing, clearly you are targeting a very niche,
It's actually not a niche market. Like,
it's not a niche market.
Yeah, 90%, and I think we'll have some of the guys from some of the ride-hailing companies, 90% of all of the trips are one or two people.
Because nobody wants to ride with a group
You
of
want your
people in the car.
privacy, you want your comfort, and so you can say, like, we're going to build a six-seater, an eight-seater, and then, how do you actually force people that want their privacy and their comfort and their flexibility to use something that they can use now? It's a minibus. It's just an autonomous minibus. So what we want to provide is a better customer experience so that people actually want to trade their own personal car that they have to drive to the parking lot, live there for most of the time, for a service that is better in every way. And that way, you don't talk about the technology. Forget about the technology. Forget about autonomous. Forget about everything else. It's about a better customer experience.
Hyper-personalization, which is what we're seeing in most industries.
Among other things, yes, personalization.
Yes.
Yep.
Hassan, I want to go back to you. When you talk about, your company, Abdul Latif Jameel, how do you say it's supporting some of these wider, significant shifts in the sector?
So I know we're short on time, but we like to imagine like a future where traffic jams are a thing of the past. A future where you're thinking, mobility, transportation is more affordable, is cleaner, is safer. It's not noisy anymore. Cities like New York, you open your window and this traffic. That's what the future of mobility truly is, and that's the the value chain that we invest in, or we're looking to invest in, that ecosystem that we're investing in to really support that system.
I want to end with a fun lightning round since we are running out of time. Mate, I'm going to start with you. You talked a big game about Bugattis. What was the first car you ever owned?
1984 BMW 3 Series that I converted to electric, and that's the beginning of the company.
Of course he did. Marco, what about you, your first car?
It's a cheap Skoda Fabia. Yeah, we didn't have a lot of money, so we got like the cheapest car we can get, and that was good because I had a few crashes with it, so it's good.
Toyota Land Cruiser.
I also had a Toyota. Yes. Mate, to you, what do you think is the single most exciting innovation that will transform the mobility sector?
SpaceX, the big rockets they are doing. As far as I understand, Elon wants also to do like point-to-point transport on Earth. So like from, I don't know, New York to Sydney in 1 hour. I think that's a pretty big revolution if that happens.
That's a great tee up for my next panel. Marco, what about you? Single most exciting innovation right now in this sector?
I mean, I think what we're doing is super exciting. We're setting the standards. We're not going to be the biggest in volume. That's not our plan, but we want to set the standards. So once you try our service, our robotaxi, you can never go back.
What about you, Hassan?
I think how, all these, there's so many technologies, whether robotaxis, whether rockets, but I think how AI is being integrated in these systems is very exciting, I think.
The future of the mobility sector, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.